All right, welcome back everybody to the deep dive. We've got a really interesting deep dive to get into today.
Yeah,
All
definitely.
about, well,
Pick one.
yeah, it's a huge one. It's Elon Musk and really his platform X and the
Right.
EU, and all this stuff swirling around disinformation laws and fines and the whole thing.
Yeah, a lot of tension brewing right now.
Yeah, I mean, so what we're looking at is a lot of these reports that have been coming out recently. Some of them are from people who are pretty close to the situation.
Insiders, yeah.
Yeah, insiders. And
Link documents, that kind of thing.
exactly. So we're going to try to break down what's actually going on. What are the core of these allegations? What could this mean for X, for Musk, for other big tech companies, really?
The whole landscape.
The whole thing. And I think one of the things that's most interesting about this is like the geopolitics, right?
Oh, absolutely. This goes way beyond just one company.
Yeah.
This is about the U.S. and the EU.
Big time players.
Yeah, big time. Battling it out over, well, a lot of things. But this is one of the battlegrounds.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just dive right in. So what we're seeing is that EU regulators are reportedly preparing what could be a massive, massive fine against, yes,
Potentially over $1 billion.
$1 billion. Wow. And this would be the first, I guess you could call it a mega penalty.
First of its kind.
Yeah. Under this new EU law that's aimed at basically policing online content. Trying to get a handle on all of this stuff that's flying around.
And it's a really big deal because it shows
Yeah.
they're serious about enforcing these new rules.
Right.
And the law we're talking about here is called the Digital Services Act, the DSA.
Okay, the DSA.
Mhm.
And I know we talked about this a little bit on the show before, but for people who maybe are just tuning in for the first time, like what's the main idea behind this? What are they trying to do?
Basically, it's all about combating illegal content online. So we're talking, hate speech, disinformation, anything that could really cause harm. And it puts the responsibility on these social media companies, the X's of the world, to actually do something about it.
Yeah, so it's not just like, oh, it's the internet, anything goes, free for all. They're saying, no, you guys have a responsibility to moderate this stuff.
Exactly. And that's what they're saying X isn't doing enough of.
Okay. And this isn't like the first time that they've had X in their sights, right?
Right. So last year, the EU Commission, they actually opened an investigation into X. And just recently, they issued a preliminary ruling that X had violated the DSA.
Oh, wow.
So this potential fine is basically the next step.
Okay, so they're not messing around.
Not at all.
Yeah. So I'm curious, how's Elon Musk likely to respond to all this?
Well, knowing Musk, he's probably going to fight back.
Yeah.
Hard.
I mean, I remember reading that he said something about a very public battle in court.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And he's a pretty vocal critic of a lot of European social media policies, right?
He is. He often calls it censorship.
Yeah, he's all about absolute free speech.
Free speech absolutism, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's going to be interesting to see how that clashes with the EU's approach, which is much more about like protecting users.
Right, protecting users from harm.
Right. And then there's this whole other layer, which I think is fascinating, and that's the political context.
The geopolitical angle.
Yeah, because this isn't just happening, in some kind of vacuum. It's all tied up with relations between the U.S. and the EU, right?
Absolutely. And things are, things are a little tense right now.
Yeah, understatement.
To say the least.
To say the least. I mean, you've got Musk, who, he was an advisor to President Trump.
Right.
And then you've got these trade tariffs that the U.S. has imposed on EU goods.
And the EU has retaliated with their own tariffs.
The whole thing. So it's messy. And there are even reports, and this is kind of wild, that the investigation into X actually slowed down.
Stalled almost.
Yeah, after Trump was elected.
Which, you have to wonder if that was a coincidence.
Yeah, like what was going on there.
Exactly. But then, as trade tensions started heating up again, the investigation picked up speed.
Oh, interesting. Like they were using it as leverage almost.
It's hard to say for sure, but the timing is definitely suspicious.
Yeah, it's very suggestive. Of course, the EU Commission, they're saying, no, we're totally impartial.
Yeah, they're adamant about that.
We enforce our laws fairly. It doesn't matter who you are.
But, politics and trade, they always have a way of influencing these things.
Yeah, it's hard to separate them completely. And it's not just this disinformation issue, right?
No. There's more.
Yeah, there's a whole other investigation that X is facing from the EU. This one's about content moderation, like broadly.
Their overall policies.
Yeah, And the concern seems to be that because they've got this, relatively hands-off approach, that it's made X kind of a hub for, illegal hate speech and
A
stuff.
breeding ground, some would say.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a big deal because if they find that X isn't doing enough to, actually address these issues, then they could face, even more penalties.
Potentially even bigger fines.
Wow.
And they could be forced to change their policies, how they moderate content.
Yeah, so this could have like a lasting impact.
Oh, for sure. This could reshape the whole platform.
And the thing that I think is so interesting is Musk himself, right? Because he's not just some like passive observer in all this.
No, he's very much a participant.
He's engaging in European politics, and some of the stuff that he's said and done, I mean, it's pretty noteworthy. Like when the French court barred Marine Le Pen from office.
The embezzlement case.
Yeah, right. He went on X and he was like, "Free Le Pen."
Very vocal about it.
And he was comparing it to Trump's legal issues, saying that it was basically the same thing.
Drawing parallels, yeah.
Yeah. And then he's also been critical of the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz.
Right. And he's expressed support for the AfD.
The far-right party in Germany.
Yeah.
So it's pretty clear that he's got opinions about what's happening in Europe, and he's not afraid to share them.
He's not shy, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, this whole situation, it's really, really complex, right?
It's a tangled web.
It is. You've got this potential huge fine for X under these new EU regulations, all because of concerns about disinformation, how they're moderating content.
And the EU is taking a very different approach to online content than the U.S.
Yeah, very different approaches. And then you've got these US-EU political and trade dynamics at play.
It's all intertwined.
And then in the middle of it all, you've got Elon Musk, just being Elon Musk.
Yeah, he's a wild card for sure.
Yeah, defiant, and very much involved in the whole thing. And I think, what's really interesting to me is, like, what does this mean for the future of online speech?
That's a big question.
Because this is a global issue.
It is. And we're seeing different countries, different regions trying to grapple with it in different ways.
Yeah. And this whole thing with X and the EU, it's kind of a microcosm of that, right?
It really is.
It's like, how do you balance free speech with protecting people from harm?
Right. And who gets to decide what's harmful?
Exactly. It's a really, really tough question. So I'm curious for everyone listening, like, what are your thoughts on this? How do you think this is all going to play out?
And what does it mean for you?
Yeah. How might this affect how you get your information online, how you think about, what you're reading, what you're seeing?
It's something to think about, for sure.
It is. It's a lot to think about. But it's fascinating stuff. So thanks for diving into it with us today, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Until then,
Yeah.
stay curious.
Stay curious.